Well, the time is just gone 18 minutes past 8 as we kick off this morning, taking a look at global surveillance. Now, many of us are so deep rooted into the world of technology, the digital age, whether it's just a simple use of your cell phone. But there are many, many questions, and this has been a talking point for a very, very long time, looking at the threat of being on some of these digital platforms, but more importantly, to what extent are you being monitored? Big Brother always watching you, and that is a very common term that has been used. Now, someone that has done extensive research through an article is Sõzarn Barday, who is an attorney based in South Africa. She has a particular interest in human rights in the Middle East. Are we talking about the Pegasus software in particular? Sõzarn, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the show.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me.
Just reading this article, in fact, I found it very, very fascinating, but very interesting, but also very, very deep in terms of
Mhm.
some of the issues that have been raised. Now, just looking at your article in particular, it does paint a very vivid picture of Pegasus, its extensive reach, its power, and from many perspectives, one can look at it from a human rights perspective, from a legal perspective, and just to understand your attention and why you've or what drew your attention to this, to covering the spyware, and your interest in this particular subject.
Well, with the ongoing genocide, many journalists, activists, and individuals have been specifically placed under surveillance. And we know this as individuals have been harassed, they've been threatened, and certain individuals have even been killed. And given what has happened, I thought, you know what is sitting behind such surveillance technology? What company is sitting behind it? And that company, one of the main ones, is in NSO. Now, NSO is, as you may know, an Israeli company. And what quite interested me was the intersection between law, technology, and human rights. And that's what led me to dabble into this topic.
Yes, and I think also, given your own background, Suzanne, obviously human rights law important to you, which is an area that you are very, very passionate about, but also at the same time taking a look at your interest on what is taking place in the Middle East. And you mentioned NSO as well. Now, we know this is an Israeli cyber surveillance company. And all of this actually put together tells us that we have got certain major concerns. One, obviously, looking at some of the regional issues that have been playing out in the Middle East, but also in terms of surveillance, because we've seen so much in the last year with the genocide that has unfolded as well. And a lot of it is as a result of surveillance, intelligence gathering, and I'm sure the reach of Pegasus has had quite a major role to play in this.
No, for sure. Pegasus is definitely a big player within this surveillance field. It's quite intrusive that it goes so as far as to reading your WhatsApp messages, your emails. It even dabbles into switching on your phone camera and filming everything that you're doing, whether you being at home or you being, out at the shops. And it's quite invasive that it invades your right to privacy, your right to freedom. And there are no laws or regulations that are really regulating this sector, which is quite concerning.
Yes. Now, the question is, do people even know that they are being monitored, that this surveillance technology is being intrusive? It is infringing, as you mentioned, on the human rights, because clearly it must be having some sort of impact, psychological impact, particularly when people know that they are under Pegasus surveillance.
Now, many people initially don't actually know that they are being surveilled by Pegasus initially, as the software, it's quite sneaky on your device. You can't really pick it up very quickly. However, if you do see your battery draining very quickly, or certain getting random messages, or that sort of thing, there's little things that the malware actually does, which flags to you that there's certain viruses on your phone, and one of them could be Pegasus. Now, what tends to happen when an individual becomes aware that they're being surveilled by Pegasus is that they become quite distressed. Your anxiety levels go through the roof. One tends to be a little bit paranoid as well. And you constantly feel that you have to self censor yourself, which ultimately makes you, feel on edge all the time. And then it leads to burnout in an individual.
Yes, I'd like to actually take this further to looking at it from a legal perspective. But I think while we are staying about privacy, we're talking about human rights as well. And just looking at this surveillance, I'm sure it is targeted surveillance. Certain people would be surveilled more than others. We're talking
Mhm.
about journalists, we're talking about activists, we're talking about people who are vulnerable, individuals who are vulnerable.
Yes, for sure. Um, Pegasus is not something that you'd find in each and every individual's phone. They do, like you said, target certain individuals who may be in the higher echelon within the resistance field. That being said, such technology, such technology that NSO provides, it, it's also being sold to various countries across the globe, and many countries that are sort of a dictatorship country, and then also countries that grossly violate human rights. Now, taking it back to the Middle East, countries such as Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and even the UAE, they all use this technology and invest in it, and they surveil their citizens. And just to give you a bit of an inkling, uh, in NSO, they say that their technology is primarily to, see where there's terrorism and counteract that, and also to, assist with decreasing crime. However, such technology is being grossly violated to such an extent that in Mexico alone, Pegasus is being used to surveil civilians and seeing what type of soft drinks that they are drinking, and to what extent they are drinking those soft drinks, so that the government can then, implement sugar taxes and whatnot. So it's very intrusive, and what the company says that it's very contradictory to what it actually does and who it sells to.
Well, clearly there is a bigger picture emerging, and this is where I'd like to focus a bit on Suzanne, on some of the legal and diplomatic implications, because now that you mentioned that this software is now being used not only in Israel but many other countries for a variety of purposes as well. And in your research, have you found instances where Pegasus was used where it actually violated international law or even local laws? And again, the potential for lawsuits against this NSO group.
For sure. So, one of the countries I've already mentioned, which is Mexico, but then another country which Pegasus has also violated laws is in Rwanda. Now, as many of your viewers may know, a couple of years ago, Rwanda also faced a genocide. But there was also a movie released which was called A Hotel Rwanda. Now, the Hotel Rwanda basically tells you about the genocide in Rwanda and exposes the atrocities that happened there. Now, the individual who was behind this film, he was essentially targeted by Pegasus. And what happened was he was abducted and kidnapped and taken to Dubai. And this happened in 2021, so it was very recent. And thereafter, he was then trialed in Rwanda, and he was charged with being a terrorist. So, in terms of the laws that Pegasus is violating. It's violating your right to privacy, your right to freedom. And these are all rights that are protected under Article 12 and Article 17 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the International Covenant. So, and in addition to that, each country as a whole also has their own domestic laws. So it would essentially violate many privacy laws in every country within their own constitution. And it would also violate their country's laws in terms of acts which protect your data, which protect your information. Like here in South Africa, we have the POPI Act, which protects our data and information. No one can just, intrude your phone and gather all the data and do as they will with it.
Yes, I think interesting that you mentioned the Poppy Act. And again, when we're talking about regulation, when we're talking about accountability, particularly on the part of governments as well, I think this is extremely important. But do governments actually recognize the danger that a software like this, spyware like this, actually poses as a threat to citizens? Yes, to a large extent, you mentioned certain governments use it for whatever reason. But again, just in terms of protecting the general public, and we know you mentioned social media platforms like WhatsApp and many of the other popular platforms that we use on a day-to-day basis. That protection, how critical, how important is that protection?
So, with the government is well aware of Pegasus being on the market. In fact, the government is even so far as being aware of other malware software that's also being used to surveil individuals. In South Africa alone, Pegasus is being used. And there are 23 other nations which Pegasus has also been used on their surveillance as well. And then in terms of uh, Pegasus being on your phone and whatnot, the government is fully aware, yet it doesn't want to do anything about it, as essentially it's actually in the government's interest to have it on your phone. They monitor certain individuals who may not necessarily fall in line with what they want to achieve, whether it be in certain economic sectors or certain social sectors. And they definitely do monitor individuals who may be more outspoken about the Palestinian movement currently as well here in South Africa.
Yes. So, what you are saying essentially is this spyware is a weapon on its own, just like military hardware would be a weapon, just like mainstream media is a weapon on its own as well. This spyware is a weapon, in the hands of governments like, for example, the Israeli government. And I mentioned the incidents that had taken place in Lebanon as well. Through people's phones as well. So all of this actually put together, and we've seen even with the genocide that has been unfolding, targeting people, targeting certain individuals. We've seen so many assassinations, high level, high profile assassinations taking place. And I'm sure a lot had to do with use of spyware like Pegasus.
It can definitely be argued that Pegasus is a weapon. It hasn't been classified legally as a weapon, though, that I must stress. However, as you've mentioned, Pegasus has harmed individuals, it's targeted individuals. So, yes, I personally see it as a weapon, but it hasn't been classified as such. But if it were to be classified as a weapon, then essentially that would be very good, because then the the malware wouldn't be sold, to every person on the street or to any government that's violating gross human rights violations, that essentially the malware would have certain laws and regulations around it in terms of who it can be sold to. And then once that has actually been implemented and practiced, then NSO cannot just sell it willy nilly to anybody. And in this way, we can protect citizens who are living in these countries where they face these atrocities.
Suzanne, what happens to countries that have been affected by this malware, by Pegasus, particularly in terms of their sovereignty and through surveillance, they have been impacted in some way or the other? From a diplomatic perspective, is there any recourse?
So there are limited laws and diplomatic recourses. However, what happens on the ground is a different story. Um, because essentially, to actually implement and clamp down on Pegasus as a whole with these laws, it's quite hard because, as you can see, there is no independent body that has oversight over Pegasus, nor is there a committee or anything like that. But in addition to that, the way that Pegasus works, um, it works essentially to create and foster diplomatic relationships between Israel and another country. So that's essentially how the diplomatic field works. So it's hard to cut through all that ice.
Yes, and just finally, looking at international human rights organizations, human rights bodies, and where do they fit in? Because at the end of the day, they are there to take care, to look after the interests of people in general, and this is clearly a case of an infringement of basic human rights. Are they saying anything? And should a lot more be done to create awareness surrounding this threat and this danger and this dark side of global surveillance, which you have called it?
So, Amnesty International has raised concerns about Pegasus. However, to this day, there hasn't been as much uproar about it. It is in the news, but it's not something that people are constantly making a noise. So, I would strongly encourage people within the human rights sector or even individuals who have an interest in this topic to start educating people. Education is very important. It's a tool that can honestly, it can change societies and it can change lives. But in addition to that, organizations and individuals also need to start lobbying for regulations and laws around this surveillance malware. Because, like I said, this is not the only one on the market. However, Pegasus does dominate the market currently. And then, as for individuals that are, facing this, having this Pegasus on their phone and whatnot, I would strongly encourage the individuals to be a little bit more aware in terms of when you notice funny things on your phone or certain things happening or your battery depleting super quick, just think, a little bit, hey, there might be something on my phone. I'm not saying we all need to be paranoid. Definitely no, not that. But let's all be a bit careful, mindful, more aware. And then I would say to the individuals as well that since you've been targeted by Pegasus, you're obviously an individual who, holds a lot of say in certain sectors, or you may be in a position that has a lot of power in comparison to other people. So I'd encourage those individuals to, even though your anxiety or you may be fearful that you have this device on your phone and they are surveilling you, to stay strong, hold your ground, don't become fearful, because that's what they want in the end.
Well, I must say, this interview in itself has been an education for me personally, and I'm sure for many of our listeners and viewers this morning as well. And it's a subject, it's a topic that needs a lot more discussion, a lot more in depth understanding as to why this is regarded as such a dark side, as you call it, of global surveillance and the threats that it actually poses. And I'm sure at some point in time, we will be touching base and getting into some of the other detail as well. But for now, we thank you, Suzanne. We say shukran to you for taking time out this morning with us right here on Salam Media. All the best to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Afwan, and thank you for having me. Walaikum salam.
Suzanne Barday with us this morning, right here on Assalam Media. And I must say that this is a fascinating topic. It's something that we need to talk about a lot more, particularly for all of us that are so deep rooted into the technology that we have, even in the palms of our hands. But we don't realize that there could be dangers lurking somewhere in the background. With that, we're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be talking about Islamophobia, about the campus uproar, about viral video of Muslim women praying at Quantum University.